Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome to today's video. Hope you all had a lovely week. I most certainly did, because I just got back from my 2-day trip of snowboarding in Utah, so that was super fun. Admittedly, the snow wasn't actually that great. I was hoping for some of that, Rocky Mountain powder type stuff, but this snow season's been pretty terrible for snow, at least on the west coast here. On the east coast, apparently it's just been dumping with all the winter storms and whatnot. But anyways, yeah, no, I had an awesome time, and it was nice to get, like I've said before, it's been about 3 winters since I've snowboarded, so I'm getting back into it this season. And it was nice to return to a certain level of comfort on my board, and I even pushed my limits a little bit. I tried my first ever backside board slide, for those who know, on a pretty wide box, and I almost landed it. Not quite. I had like 2 solid attempts for the day, and couldn't quite nail it down. But anyways, I digress. So the reason we are here today, of course, is because we are going to be participating in 2x Ancients here on the portal, or in the portal, for the sake of course, the Titan event going on right now and the champion chase associated with it. Now, taking a look at this particular champion chase, the milestones are pretty rough. You have 55 or 1550 for the lower milestone, which is pretty par for the course, but 5500 for the upper milestone, which can be a bit of a stretch goal to reach. However, as we mentioned, it is 2x Ancients, so this is probably the most accessible champion chase you're going to experience in the game. And so as long as you have upwards of, I want to say, 80 to 100 Ancients, depending upon RNG, of course, you should be good to get out there to 5500. But if you don't, then that might be a bit of a struggle, and you might have to use some other different shard types or other sources of air quotes free points. But in my case, of course, popping into the portal, we do have an excess of shards, so we should be fine to get out to the 5500 pretty darn easily. So taking a look at the overall shard count, my count at the moment, 488 on the Ancients, which of course we'll be dipping into today, 215 on the Voids, 22 on the Primals, and then 61 on the Sacreds. In terms of Mercy, we are basically relatively fresh off of a legendary when it comes to Ancient Shards, so 15 Ancients in, so we're basically at the mercy of RNGs as to whether or not we get a legendary for the day. And if we do happen to get a legendary, this is one of the few times where I am actually participating in the champion chase on the non-Sunday version, because I wouldn't mind getting Edward Kenway here from the 10x. Obviously, the odds of that are super low. I think right now a 10x chance is somewhere around 5% chance, if you get a legendary, that it's the one that is up for grabs. So very slim chances of 1, getting a legendary, and 2, that legendary being Edward specifically. But even though it's a small chance, if I can happen to get one or any of the assassins earlier than their presumed guaranteed events, that just saves me more shards down the road. So with that in mind, if we do happen to get a legendary, I want to focus my RNG all right here on Edward, and we don't really care much about my normal wish list, but of course I would take anyone who happens to come from that. But more realistically, for the sake of the champion chase, we also do want to see a decent amount of epics, so any and all duplicate epics for empowerment will be helpful in terms of champion chase points. So without further ado, let's dive right in. We've got tons of space, we've got tons of cash, and hopefully we can get some pretty decent, no, let's go for above average luck, because we kind of need a Hail Mary chance to try and get to Edward here. So let's see what we can do. We're going to be keeping track of our points relative to the champion chase, and again, the target here is the 5500, because we do want all of the Titan event points. We've got a couple of epics, or make that 3 epics, 820 points to start. Good start. We've got Neldor, Rhineblade, one of the 2 epic Fire Knights hard mode specialists. Triple hitter on the A1 with a 3 chance to place the freeze. Got a quad hitter here, which is great for breaking the shield, but you can also follow it up as needed in case the shield comes back up. Got a double hitter here that can place decrease speed, which is helpful to slow down the Fire Knight. And then of course the passive here that can whenever anyone else places a freeze, he has a chance to join in with his A1, which can place more freezes. So really strong for that. I think Crowden is a lot better, but Neldor, and you can run them together of course, but I think Neldor works just as well. Rector Drath, the most accessible perfect Veil champion for epics, or just in general, I guess, as an epic. Super strong, great healer, great reviver, etc. And Lich, kind of just a Rosin Scar-Eyed fusion champion, but nonetheless he is kind of niche, and if you really do need to single target decrease in target's enemy meter by 100%, then he can do that while placing decrease speed on a 3-turn cooldown. 820 is an excellent start, so let's keep it going and see what we can get here. I think on average you should be seeing around 2 epics per 10 pop, and it looks like we got our odds. Hey, no, we beat the odds. 3 more epics, awesome, we'll take that. Sir Artemage, he's a decent Force Affinity epic nuker. He can really smack with this ability. Granted, it's single target, but he does ignore 30% defense, and awkwardly he gives himself useful buffs after he kills someone, which is kind of a bummer. But yeah, decent AoE here and a decent A1 in terms of debuffs, but nothing crazy. Yizzo is okay, but he's not really that great. Counterattack for 2 turns on an ally can be useful in some niche situations, but not really that great. And then Wuzgar, he's kind of like a Fire Knight specialist champion, maybe like progression Fire Knight, I would say, because you have a quad hitter on the A1, you've got a counterattack on himself, and then you've got reflect damage on the entire team. So you reflect damage for the shield, counterattack for hitting into the shield, and then the quad hitter for hitting into the shield. So that's kind of his niche if you do need that kit. 1600 in the champion chase. Next 10 pop, what can we get from here? Rocktooth, Halberdier, bunch of rares looking like. Okay, is this a rare tax? Close, not quite. Deacon Armstrong, still one of the best epic debuffers in the game. Leech on the A1. AoE decrease defense here on a 3-turn cooldown, and of course his bread and butter ability, the fill turn meter, decrease turn meter 50% each, and then extra turn, which allows him to cycle through the decreased defense and or the leech very, very quickly. Speed aura in all battles, super strong. 340 for this 10 pop. Next up, we've got the 4th 10 pop. Eventually we should probably get a rare tax. This could be the one or not. We got a couple of epics, so we're still kind of we're kind of coasting through with decent race here. But Anax, super fun champion. He's one of my favorite aesthetic epics in the game. The whole mummy vibe going on here, the undead horde. But yeah, he's kind of, his niche is like Demon Lord Clan Boss DPS. He can definitely contend with some legendaries in the game in terms of traditional block damage and killable teams. But obviously, with the advent of Wixwell and everything else, you don't really need much of this style of champion. But nonetheless, we can hear decrease defense on the A1 and poisons for days, because these are a 3-turn duration on a 3-turn cooldown. He's also good in niche situations like Bommel, if you're running a really old school team, not like a niche axe speed team where you can place decrease accuracy or maintain decrease accuracy on Bommel. That way he doesn't bomb your team. So pretty useful epic there. And as opposed to Flesh Tear, who is basically useless. 2,500 points in the champion chase, so we're just shy of about halfway. So we still got a decent amount of ancients to go, but if we can continue on this trajectory, we should be able to get there within, like I said, roughly the 100-ish ancients. So 2 more epics here, not much to say. Sepulchre Sentinel, kind of old school champion once again, clan boss in mind. Decrease attack on the A1, block debuffs, increase defense on a 4-turn cooldown. So she is one that you would build at a 4-3 ratio and kind of have the block debuffs to block the stun and or the decrease speed, etc. But again, you probably don't need that much anymore unless you're really in the early game. Then Masamoto, he's okay. Some people use him for some Cursed City stages as a DPS. I've never invested in him for that purpose, but nonetheless, he can fill that role. 3,000 in the champion chase. We've now crossed over the halfway point. So let's see if we can continue to keep our streak of epics on every 10 pop. Okay, Anax. Okay, wow. Anax and Corpse Collector. We already talked about Anax, Corpse Collector. Not much to say about her, but yeah, that was a marginal there. We almost got at least it felt like a 10 pop of rares there. But 2 more epics will take it. 3,700-ish somewhere in the champion chase. So if we can keep the trend, we can be in a good spot, but I suspect that eventually, yeah, we're going to get the dreaded all blues. There we go. So plus 100, so 3,800 in the champion chase. Let's keep it going. Let's see what we can get in the next 10 pop. So I guess at the worst case here, if we end up ripping through a bunch of ancients, which is not the end of the world, then we're just going to be building up some mercy in case there is an ancient pogo in the near term. There hasn't been, I actually don't know when the last one was. So we may or may not be due for one in the near term, but regardless, that's the upside of potentially bad RNG. However, if we end up pulling a ton of ancients, then we might just get a legendary because just a higher chance. But anyways, Maruka, decent champion. I used to use her in a Sand Devil team because it's just the old school revive on death type compositions. But more recently, I just use her in the Nether Spider in one stage of the Cursed City because revive on death is a functional way to survive the Nether Spider. If you get stacked on a poison, she's about to take a turn, activates all the poisons. Revive on death brings your whole team back up, but also a single target cleanse and a heal as needed. So pretty decent champion, but extremely niche. We're now at 4,100 in the champion chase, so just over 1,000 to go, and a legendary. Okay, we did get one in the end, and it is Wither the Crowned, who I do already have, but will definitely take it in terms of a duplicate for Faction Guardians. But Wither the Crowned, she used to be an absolute menace in Arena just because she was extremely hard to kill. Obviously, we have a lot more powerful champions, more powerful kits, and just power creep in the game, but she was just Force Affinity. basically, you start your starter champions are magic, and it's just hard to kill her. She puts a continuous heal on herself, because she would just be solo, but just she puts it on the ally with the lowest HP for 1 turn at the start of her turn. Her A1 also places a continuous heal on a random ally for 2 turns. Then she has a full cleanse here that can heal, and then increased defense that will also activate any and all continuous heals on all allies, which again, so yeah, she was just a absolute menace way back in the day when she came out as kind of arena defense solo champion, but nowadays, a lot more ways to deal with her. But anyways, she is a extremely good healer. You still see her, I think, in like, Ice Golem hard type runs as a duo with Walking Tomb Drang or Artak, just because she's one of the best healers in the game. So we'll definitely take her. And again, that for me, that's a duplicate, so that's a faction guardian. Then Lockwayne, claim to fame as being a Lady Mikage epic, unfortunately for him. And then Vergis, used to be kind of meta for like soloing a Scarab King, but it takes like, destroy set, 3-minute, just walk away and come back type deal. And I don't know if it was worth it to do necessarily. So we did get a legendary. We'll definitely take that, but unfortunately it was not the Edward that we're hoping to sneak in early. And I have a sneaking suspicion that we're not going to get any of the assassins early. We're just going to have to get them from all the guaranteed, but it doesn't really matter. I would have participated in this Titan event champion chase anyways, so it doesn't really matter. This was just kind of a shot in the dark, kind of crossing the fingers and hoping that it happened. 5,200 in the champion chase, so as long as we get 1 epic here, I think that should seal the deal. Another Yizzo, which is unfortunate. Anything here is, or anything extra is extra. Okay, hey, 4 epics, we'll take it. So a little bit of an overshoot, that's fine. Achak the Wonderin, really good for like spider progression, like a normal mode spider. Of course, the hard mode, they're immune to, the spiderlings are immune to freeze, but AoE freeze here, granted, it's a 90% chance when booked, so you do want, potentially you want Fearsome Presence to make it 95, or you can just roll with the 90% and he has a chance to not place it. And then his passive is relatively unique, where if you have someone else out there who puts out a burn, you get some healing, which again is kind of meta for spider teams. And then the freeze, you get turn meter, so you can kind of stay ahead of the minions. You don't really use the A2 that much, and then the A1 is kind of meh as well. But yeah, spider progression. Elfrig is just another Lady Mikage epic, and then Carlinia, not really much to say about her. So 4 epics most certainly got us the points we needed in the champion chase, but we were kind of on the edge there anyways after the legendary, so we should be at 6,000 and something, I guess. We're kind of in range of the mythical tome. Do we double down and kind of invest in that? We're only 1,000 away. I usually don't go for the mythical tome, but in this case it might actually be worth it given our proximity, just because we already got a legendary. Mercy's reset, so we're somewhat incentivized to keep going in terms of that, just because what's the worst that can happen is, again, we start building up Mercy towards the next legendary, but we're also, we're just 1,000 away, and that last 10 pop kind of got me inspired. All right, we'll keep going for once. We'll break the rules. Normally we kind of min-max and just focus on the key objective here, but we're kind of close to the mythical tome, and I've not gotten a new mythical that I need to put books into for a while, so I'm close to like 10 tomes ish, but you can never go wrong with having more mythical tomes, I would say. So let's keep it going. We still got some space, we still got tons of cash, and let's see if we can quickly get another 1,000 points in the champion chase here. So let's see. Did I jinx myself and we're going to get a set of 10 rares? No, not quite. Okay, 1 epic though. Not the best. But Taurus, basically the epic version of Tomb Lord. He's your poison placer, quad poison AoE. He lowers his health to 1 HP, but he has unkillable on himself, so you don't necessarily have to worry about that when ascended, of course. But yeah, just poison activation teams. If you don't have a good poison explosion team, especially after getting Ezio, or a poison placing champion after getting Ezio, then this guy can definitely do that job as an epic if you don't have anyone better like a Cavalax or Tomb Lord, for example. 6,600, I believe, in the champion chase. So I think on paper we need roughly 4 epics, maybe 3 if we're getting a ton of rares, which does seem to be the case. Oof, you hate to see it. And all blues. Darn, maybe we were wrong to double down here, but nonetheless, I think it's worth it just for the sake of the resources. But we are still looking for a couple of epics. Okay, we got 2 right at the end. We got Lady Boobieville, whose passive allows you to solo Baumel. Granted, it takes I don't know, maybe upwards of 20 minutes, but you just put her in immortal and regen. You just have her War Master on her, and she just kind of A1s until Baumel dies, and every time the minions die, she heals herself. And then Firegun Isbel, decent bomb champion. You know, if you don't have Nishak and you run, I think, like a double Isabel, you can do some sort of bommel stuff, quick runs. But other than that, she's also a Lady Mikage epic. So we should be at 7,200 now. So all we need is one more epic. So if being efficient, you could do this, you know, pulling one at a time, but I'm a little bit more impatient than that. And there we go. Cage Breaker. That's going to do it. Another Deacon guaranteed, locked in. So 2 epics there. We already talked about Deacon. But yeah, that should officially do it. Now I think we're done. Now we should have gotten the Mythical Tome with a minimal amount of overshoot compared to the last time. So we should be at like 7,600, 7,700, somewhere around there whenever it decides to load. 7,800. Okay, math is wrong, but it's fine. So yeah, there we go. Basically 8,000 points. We got ourselves a Mythical Tome, so we went for the stretch goal this time, but it's kind of a rare occurrence. But like I said, it's 2x Ancients. Ancients are relatively in high abundance, especially for Endgame. And yeah, I don't expect this position to hold here again. It's 2x Ancients. This is literally the first 2 hours that the event or the tournament is live. So I highly, highly doubt that I'm going to hold third. So we're probably going to dip down. But maybe we've built up enough of a margin that we might end up sliding down to some gems or something like that. But yeah, let's go ahead and take care of the Faction Guardians together. That is the Altar of Souls. What are you doing there? There we go. Guardian Ring. And then we come down to the Demon Spawn. So this is going to be the second set of Faction Guardians for me in terms of this faction. So I think that's that's the attack. The attack. I am severely lacking in terms of a Demon Spawn on my account overall, but I'm trying to think of legendary attack based champions. I guess it'll help out my Half-Rack, even though he's not really one of my primary. He's just kind of like a Curse City Faction Wars type champion for me. Countess Lix is kind of in the same boat. She's not even booked. Lord Chazar, I guess I do use him on occasion for certain bomb based on a bomb team, certain based on affinity, so a little bit more potency from him. But yeah, not much for me on my account in terms of Demon Spawn with the 10% attack. But anyways, there you have it, mission accomplished and then some in terms of securing all of the Titan event points for the sake of the Odyssey Titan event. In fact, we can take a quick look as far as where I'm at in the Titan event. So 850 points, so we can claim all of these juicy rewards here. So I'm currently working through milestone 4 at the moment. Again, my intention is to go all the way up and through milestone 5. And yeah, I basically have done almost every single point opportunity thus far. I did skip 50 points in the first Dungeon Divers, and I might skip another set of 50 in the second one's going on right now. But also, this is kind of a good time to just be running the event dungeon, so I might end up doing this Dungeon Divers, and just whenever the end of it comes around, the last like 3 events, I might just skip, depending upon how much excess I have. But at the moment I have 200 points of wiggle room, and yeah, I intend to do like the Deck of Fate and everything else, assuming there is one. So that's why I have a little bit more flexibility towards the end of just kind of not doing whatever the last few events are, just before presumably the next fusion starts in February. But yeah, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys got from your summons, assuming you're also pulling during this 2x Ancients for the sake of the Titan event points from the Champion Chase. As always, if you did enjoy the video, then be sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help out the channel, and feel free to hit the subscribe button down below as well, if and only if you're enjoying the content overall on this channel, for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.